Good evening everyone, and welcome to this masterclass. My name is Cpl Craig Sanders, and I'm a percussionist in the band of Her Majesty's Royal Marines, Portsmouth. So tonight, while you join me, I'm going to be discussing how to deal with nerves and performance anxiety. But before we get started, I'm just going to run through how this masterclass is going to work, and all the times and etc. But while people are joining. So I'm going to chat about what performance anxiety is, its effects upon us as a performer, and how we can deal with it. So I'm going to talk about that for about 20 to 25 minutes. Then I'll be joined by Corporal Ben Streeter, who will answer any questions you have on a career in the Royal Marines Band Service. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the comments down below. Myself and Ben will do our best to answer all the questions when he joins me in hopefully about 20 to 25 minutes. So as you're all joining in, I'll just say a bit about myself. So, as previously said, I'm in the Portsmouth Band, and I've been really lucky throughout my career to travel around the world, both within the band, and I've also performed as a soloist. I performed at the Albert Hall with the mass bands for the Mountbatten Festival of Music, which was amazing. And I've also been fortunate enough to take many examinations which have been funded by the band service, including a degree and diplomas. So I basically wanted to come on here tonight and share my experience of how I've dealt with nerves in these situations. And I've also spoken to a lot of people within the band service to see how they've dealt with their situations of nerves. I'm not a medical professional, but a lot of these things are just tips that I've learnt, and like I said, I've got from other people, so hopefully they'll benefit you. So firstly, performance anxiety is something that will take time to manage. It won't happen overnight. But hopefully, like I said, by the end of the masterclass, we can pick up a few techniques that you can use, whether you're performing as a soloist, if you're in an ensemble and you get a bit nervous, if you're a conductor maybe, or if you're even taking an exam, or even auditioning for the Royal Marines Band Service. So the first question I want to sort of ask myself tonight, and you to understand, is what is performance anxiety? So performance anxiety is sometimes called stage fright, and it's an exaggerated fear of performing in public. It can be seen as a common problem among both amateur and professional musicians, but if we learn to deal with it, it can actually be a positive thing, and we can use it to our advantage. So I'm guessing most of you that are logging in and seeing this, you've probably felt the effects of anxiety. I know I definitely have, 100% all the time feel it. So your heart might be beating faster, you might be breathless, you might get sweaty or shaky hands maybe, butterflies in your stomach, you might feel a bit sick. Self-doubt before you perform. I've had this loads where you think you're not good enough, and you might also get a dry mouth, which for a trumpet player, for instance, is quite a big problem. But as in any other kind of phobia, the symptoms that I've just listed are produced by the activation of the body's emergency system, and this causes all the well-known side effects that I've just said because of the increased adrenaline in the bloodstream. So the next thing to understand is, why does all this happen? Why do we get these effects? What is the reason for it? So anxiety is a natural response to a perceived threat, and it stems from the drive for self-preservation. So an example of this is if you're walking across a street that's really busy and there's lots of cars and trucks going past, you're in more danger, and therefore you feel more anxious. Your body starts to get your heart starts to go, you might get sweaty palms, and you're a bit on edge. That's because your body is telling you you're in a dangerous situation. The feeling that you experience here actually has a name, and it's in books and stuff, and some of you might have heard of it, and it's called the fight or flight response. Now, the fight or flight response originates in the primeval part of the brain, and I've got a picture here that shows it. It's this little bit here. It's called the amygdala. So it's really small, but this controls your feelings about it. And it's wired to be set off really quickly without the brain even needing to think. So, like I said, if you're crossing a road, you're not even thinking about that. That happens, you can't do anything about it. And when that response fires, the adrenaline pours into your bloodstream and the heart starts racing, everything starts going, you have no control over it. So when we apply this to a performance, when we walk out onto stage, our body automatically sees this as a threat. And the amygdala sends all the adrenaline into the body and into the bloodstream because we're out of our comfort zone. So that's why this happens. The changes that we feel would have an adaptive function in relation to a physical threat, so i.e. a car or a tiger, back in the day a tiger following us or trying to chase us, and it would prepare us for an athletic response, i.e. fighting or running away and fleeing. So these alarm reactions would enhance our survival if we were confronted with a busy road, potentially with cars that are going by and causing us danger. But they're really not that useful when we're faced with an audience who is expecting us to entertain them. Of course, we don't actually fear the audience physically attacking us, but we do fear that our performance might be substandard, and human pride is such a powerful motive that humiliation or disgrace can produce a similar emotion of panic. So if you're afraid at a concert, your fight or flight response will be joining you on stage, so we need to understand that. But we need to understand that to reduce this, you'll need to learn how to manage that fear. The first thing I'd like to say about all this is we just need to understand that adrenaline isn't all bad actually, and actually a good amount of adrenaline will actually heighten the senses, and this is why a lot of performers and musicians will perform better when they're live in front of an audience, because they are better with the thrill of the audience being there and the adrenaline pumping through their bloodstream. Therefore, as performers, we need to reach our optimal performance state. So how do we come to reach this optimal performance state? So this is the next thing we're going to look at. So as I've already spoken about, a certain amount of adrenaline is actually good and it helps the quality of performance. However, as performers, and certainly myself, I know this, you're not a very good judge of how anxiety is influencing your performance. There's been many occasions when I will play something, I'll go off stage and I'll say that was absolutely rubbish, and I really get rid of it and I think it was awful. And then you speak to your family or you speak to friends or people in the audience and they think it was amazing. They didn't know anything went wrong, and that's your anxiety telling you it's bad. So we need to accept that as performers we don't deal well with the judgment of that. It is also widely accepted that our performance is affected by the feelings caused by adrenaline. So basically, low amounts of adrenaline can cause for a lackluster performance, something with no energy in it, and therefore can be not very entertaining. Whereas too much adrenaline can push you the other side, and you can fail to keep control of your emotions. You might have memory blocks, and your concentration might be disrupted. So we need to find the middle ground. Not too much adrenaline, not too little, just the right amount. And I believe to recognise this, we need to look at what stress is. So what is the stress that we're putting ourselves under? How can we look at this? So you can categorise it into 3 different categories. You've got the personal, the situational, and the task-related. So the first one, personal causes. These are any personality characteristics, and these could include general anxiousness, fear of evaluation, of people looking at you and evaluating what they think of you, a history of stage nerves, maybe you've had a really bad history of performing, and even shyness. The second category is situational causes. So this could be the environment that you're put into, such as maybe a public performance, an audition maybe for a job, or an exam, or even a competition, maybe a brass band competition or something like that. Difficult circumstances to play in. Sometimes we play outside in the Royal Marines, in the cold, in the rain, the wind, so that can influence it as well. And just a high degree of concern about your performance. And then the final category I'm going to look at is the task-related causes. And these could include overly challenging repertoire, so repertoire that's too hard for you, that you challenge yourself too much, you're stressing yourself out too much with too hard music. Maybe insufficient practice, maybe you haven't practiced enough, you're not prepared. And maybe weak practice skills or lack of performance skills, so jumping too high up and going for too much of a performance that you're not capable of doing yet. But in essence, some people have personalities or histories that make them more prone to anxiety. Plus, the trickier the music that you're going to perform, the more stressful it becomes to present the material in public, so therefore you get more stressed. And finally, some performance situations are inherently more demanding than others. An audition for the Royal Marines Band Service, for example, can be quite stressful, and so can an exam, whereas performing in front of friends and family might be a bit more comforting and less stressful. So another thing to look at here is the effect of performance anxiety and when it happens. And there's 3 different stages to this again. So we've got the pre-performance, the at-performance, and the post-performance. So I'm going to look firstly at the pre-performance effects. So these are the effects that occur in the days and the months leading up to the performance. The most obvious of these effects is behavioural, and this can sort of include avoidance of practice. Maybe if you know you can't play it, you don't want to practice it, you don't want to put yourself outside your comfort zone. maybe obsessive practice, and a lot of people actually practice too much and can go on to injure themselves. If you're a trumpet player, you need to look after your chops, and a lot of people can go too far. It can cause busyness or disorganisation in the weeks leading up to the exam or to the performance. It could even go to depression, fatigue or laziness. You could have worry and distorted thinking you're not good enough to do this, which most of the time isn't the case. You can have headaches, insomnia, difficulty focusing on things, if that's going to school, doing your homework, playing football, that can affect you quite a lot. And even stomach upset and loss of appetite. And I know I've suffered from all that stuff. In the weeks leading up to a performance, I will think about every outcome that can happen. But as we'll go into in a minute, it's how you deal with that. So the second stage I'm going to look at is the at performance. So the at performance effects, they come up just prior to the show beginning or the concert beginning, and they can continue throughout the concert. They usually surface sort of backstage or on the stage, but for some musicians, it can happen when you just think about being on the stage. In this phase, the main culprit is the fight or flight response that I spoke about earlier, the thing that we need to understand, the fight or flight response that we have no control over. These effects can include feeling cold, shaking hands, maybe a racing heart, a dry mouth. Some people get sort of muscle tension in their shoulders and neck, and other people can sweat really profusely or get butterflies and feel really sick. Mental, behavioural and emotional effects include confusion, agitation and fear, and these set the stage for memory lapses and negative self-talk. Again, something I've experienced, and we need to just learn how we can deal with it. Post-performance effects, so this is the final stage. So this is after the performance. So we've given the performance and we think it didn't go very well. You can have very distorted thinking about what's happened. You can have shame about what you've performed, maybe anger or hostility towards what you've just played. You thought it was rubbish. Avoidance of practice, therefore, because you're not good enough, so I'm not going to practice anymore, which in most cases is not true. So everything I've just listed there, having spoken to many musicians, they all agree to those effects. And it's not because there's something wrong with them. It's because they're all routine repercussions of the fight or flight response I spoke about earlier, the thing we can't control. It's important to remember that anxiousness in the face of danger is normal. Just remember, if you're faced with cars or a tiger, you're going to be anxious. It's exactly the same principle. But when you develop the skills to cope with the fear on stage, these negative effects that you might have at the minute should turn into positive ones. So, what can we do to try and overcome these effects, and how can we minimise the negative outcomes? So this is a bit everybody is probably listening for, and I'm not going to give you some magical answers, but you need to work hard at these things and these techniques. Something that I think is really important, and I massively use all the time, is it's really important to have realistic expectations about what's going to be experienced during the performance, whilst also promoting some optimistic self-comments. So in the lead up to an exam or a concert or a solo, in my head, I know how I'm going to feel in the week before, the days before, on the day, as I'm walking out. I know it's not going to be nice, but I know how to deal with it and I know what's going to happen. So even then, I've accepted it and I know what's going to happen. So we can anticipate these symptoms of anxiety that are bound to sort of arise, and we need to befriend them and turn them into positive reactions. That's the key, taking them from a negative to a positive. So I've got a few techniques that I think could help this, and I'll just list a few of them off. So the first one I've got is viewing the anxiety as a positive. So with the pre-performance anxiety, we can see this as a normal thing if we accept it, and that everybody has it. The unfortunate thing is that you don't automatically arrive at this without having a negative outlook on something maybe. You might have had a negative concert or solo, and therefore you'll have a positive outcome because you'll see from the negative it's actually positive. So sometimes it's not the easiest to go in straight away and be positive. You might have to have a negative situation before. But an example I can give of this is if you look at the adrenaline effects of the heart pounding faster or faster breathing, this could actually enable you to give a more exciting performance and give across your musical message in a more exciting way. So it's just the way we look at that is it a negative or a positive? Well, it could be a positive because it'll make it more exciting for the audience. So another technique that I've already sort of spoken about is positive self-talk. So in this approach, we have the negative self-statements, which I'm sure you've all done, I've done, saying you're not good enough, I can't do this, and we try and get rid of that, and we look for the truthfulness in them, because most of the time, it's not truthful. And we look at it positively, we look at what we can do, we practice enough so that we are in a positive mind frame going into a gig or a solo or an exam, and you know you can do it, it's positive, you believe in yourself. Another technique that I use all the time, and I tuned into Band Corporal Mark Upton's masterclass the other day, and he actually mentioned this, and it's interesting that he uses it as well, and it's called mental rehearsal and imagery. So this is another strategy for performance where you imagine what it's going to feel like to be on the stage, who's going to be there, what you're going to see, what the light's going to do, how's it going to feel, how's it going to smell, is it going to be hot? And it isn't actually just in music that this is used. If you watch football or rugby or any athletes really, they will all go through their mental rehearsals. They'll place the ball down in the penalty spot, they'll take 5 steps back, they'll take a few deep breaths in, and they'll imagine where they're going to kick the ball to, and then they'll go and do it. They'll have that positive mindset that that ball is going to go where they want it to because they've been through their sort of routine, their mental rehearsal. So it's not just musicians that can do that, it's also athletes and sportsmen and women. By doing this also, we can imagine ourselves watching our own performance and have that internal focus of ourselves, we can see what we're doing. Like I say, your imagination can present negative thoughts, but we really need to concentrate on those positives, what we can do. Practice, when you're practicing, envisage the positive outcomes so you can have fun on the stage and you can stand there confidently. So when you're practicing, imagine what's going to be in front of you. And if any of you watched I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Jordan North sort of did this when he did all the challenges. He was surrounded by rats and snakes and he went to his happy place, Turf Moor. That mental imagery and the happy place. So it's not just in music, it's in everything. And you can really put yourself in a better place because of it. It's something I definitely use all the time. So another technique we can use as well is goal setting. Again, this is used in sport and general work environments. And we can break these goals down into process goals and outcome goals. So the process goal could include aspects of the performance such as technique. Have you used a good technique? Did you interpret it well? Was the phrasing what you wanted? Did you get that really good dynamic, that really quiet passage or really loud passage? So that's the process goal. Then you can have an outcome goal as well. These are more observable achievements. So this could be securing a position in the Royal Marines Band Service, for example, something you've aimed for a long time, or learning a new repertoire. So there's those 2 goals that you can use, and that's used in sport as well. So there's another technique. We can then look at behavioural strategies as well. These can include relaxation, adopting a pre-performance routine, following the anxiety hierarchy, and adopting supportive lifestyle habits. So I'm going to look at all those now, quickly. So, relaxation. So this is a standard approach that is used in all anxiety management, not just performance anxiety. And this can be done through sort of breathing exercises, and it can improve memory and concentration, and also increase your energy and productivity levels, whilst also reducing the muscle tension. So like I said, you can use breathing exercises to do this, mental imagery, positive mental imagery, to relax yourself, meditation maybe, breathing awareness, yoga, Tai Chi, maybe some stretching, and Alexander technique, which is really good. We did, at the Royal Marines School of Music, we did a lot of Alexander technique, and that really works well, gets you really relaxed and in a positive mindset. So the next one I'm going to talk about is pre-performance routines, and again, this is something massive that I follow, and I swear by it. So a pre-performance routine is very individual. Some people might include a warm-up in it. They might use positive self-talk that we've already spoken about, and they might focus on the performance goals. They might also use relaxation techniques that we've just spoken about, and control the amount and type of interaction they have before a performance. And I will admit, I do this massively. People probably think I'm weird if I'm off to do a solo, but I won't talk to people. I don't like talking to people before I perform on stage. My family and friends and parents know that. They won't text me, they won't, because I get into that zone. And that's my way of dealing with the anxiety that I'm feeling, that I'm getting in the zone to perform as well as I can. I also know of people that take naps during the day. So if they've got a big show at the Albert Hall, they'll have a nap halfway through the day so they're energised and ready to go for the performance at night. And also a lot of people monitor their food and their fluid. I know of a lot of people that actually don't drink coffee before a performance because they feel like it puts them on edge. And like I say, everyone has their own pre-performance routine, but I think it's something that really helps. Whether that's putting your left shoe on before your right shoe, getting yourself in that routine that you know what's going on, you feel comfortable. So another technique I'm going to look at here is anxiety hierarchies. So this is where the performer, we as performers, can rank a situation from 0 to 100. So 0 would be your least anxious and 100 is the most anxious, whether that's performing in front of your friends and family is 0, and then performing live on the BBC in front of millions of people is 100. And the idea is that we start at 0 and we get up another stage until we're comfortable at that stage. So once you've performed in front of your family, you then perform in front of your friends until you're comfortable at that. Then you go up to the next stage. We don't go straight in at 100. We work our way up gradually, and that should help us to get used to the feeling of the anxiety we're going to feel when we perform. So finally, and most importantly, I think for these techniques, we've got to look at a supportive lifestyle. We're just like athletes, and we have to, not just like athletes, but we have to look at looking after ourselves mentally and physically as performers to produce the best performance we can. This can include regular physical exercise, adequate sleep, and a healthy diet. Like I said, some people avoid coffee, other people avoid high sugar foods or spicy foods prior to performing. And a lot of people eat things like bananas, lots of fruits and vegetables and complex carbohydrates, because this does produce a sustained release of energy during the performance, which will hopefully give you more concentration. You won't have any fluctuations in your concentration. So we've discussed there what performance anxiety is, how it affects us, and we've looked at some of the techniques to help deal with this. So now I just want to sort of conclude before I get Ben in, just to look at how some tips I can give you for preparing for the exams auditions, some things I've picked up on that you could use. So I believe that many of the obstacles actually to being successful can be dealt with by taking some really simple actions, and here are a few tips that I've found over the years that work for me. I'm going to divide it into practice and then performance. Again, I watched Band Corporal Mark Upton the other day, and he said this, and I used to hate it when people used to say it to me, but you have to practice. You can't, there's no shortcut for preparation. You have to be prepared, and I will admit again that I'm an obsessive practicer. Because I'm a percussionist, I can practice all day. I don't get much fatigue, so I will practice to the point where I know I can't do any more. So I walk on the stage, and I know that I've done all I can, so there's no more I can do. And I also have this theory that I like to get to my 100%, and that 100% be so good that if I drop 10% on the gig, it's still a very good performance. So I practice obsessively to get to that level. Other people don't like to practice obsessively, so like I said, a lot of it is individual, but practice is really important. You can't produce a really good performance without knowing your dots, without knowing the piece inside out. Another thing I do a lot, and it really helps me, I know it helps other people, is I get my phone and I record myself. So I'll put myself under that pressure to say, I'm going to record this now, and then I'm going to listen back to it. And it makes me feel the pressure to a point of what it'll be like to be on stage. So I think that's a really good thing to do. Even if it's the beginning of your practice, you've just got the piece, or you're at the end of it. I do it every single stage, and then you can hear what you're doing. It puts you under the pressure as well. Like I said earlier as well, try and visualise the performance and how it is going to feel. I do this all the time. I know certain places like the Albert Hall has a certain sound to it, a certain feel. If you're coming on audition to the Royal Marine School of Music, for example, go online, look on YouTube. There's pictures of the console, and I've got a picture here of what you would see. Visualise visualise that panel in front of you. What's that going to feel? What are you going to feel like when they're there? Visualise them in military uniform. How are you going to feel? Get used to that feeling. So when you're there, it's not a shock. Another thing that I was told when I was at the School of Music and did work for a bit, and I have used in the past, is to increase your heart rate. So by running on the spot for a couple of seconds or doing some press-ups, your heart rate will then increase. Then play whilst your heart rate is increased. This will be the feeling you get when you're anxious on stage. So if you can do it when you're practicing, there's no reason you can do it when you're on performance. So that's a good one as well. So get your heartbeat going so you get used to that. I think another thing as well that I do a lot is play in front of small audiences to start with. So if I'm practicing something, I'll speak to my colleagues in the percussion section maybe and say, can you come and have a listen to me practicing this? Put yourself under that pressure under a couple of people. Then, get a few other people. Maybe we might get the boss in to have a listen. So that pressure's a bit more, and then we might play in front of the band, and then it might go on a concert, and then it might go on mass bands. So it's building up slowly, just like the performance, the hierarchy of anxieties that I spoke about earlier. So there I've spoken about the practice and how important the practice is, and I can't say that enough. But when we come to performance, what do we do then? What are my tips for that? So when we're performing, we have to believe in what we're doing. You have to focus on sharing your musical message with others. That's why we're there, really. We want to share our musical message. We love playing music, most of us. So think about the meaning of the music and refocus maybe on the musical goals that you set yourself, whether that's joining the band service, whether that's getting your grade 8, getting your grade 5, or just making music. Focus on those goals that you want to do and not the anxieties you've got. A lot of people suffer from things like dry mouth or your heart be racing. And there's a few things you can do to try and to deal with that, really. So a lot of the time if I'm performing solo, I will be sipping water all the time. And that's quite a simple fix. If you're getting a dry mouth, sip some water. And there's also another thing I've heard of that you can gently bite down your tongue to increase the flow of saliva in your mouth. Obviously, be gentle with that and be careful with that. If your heartbeat is increasing, for example, just make your breaths slower and deeper. Really take control of what you're doing and don't let that anxiety take over you. It's really important to note that it isn't unusual and it is okay to have a bad performance. It doesn't make you a bad musician. So if you've had one bad performance, that's not the end of you. And there's been times where people in the Royal Marines, I've done it, I've forgotten bits of music, I've made mistakes on gigs, it happens, it's life. And a lot of the time actually, it goes unnoticed. There's been many times I'll go on a gig, I'll do a solo, and I'll mess it up, I think I mess it up, and the audience turn around and they say, that's the best thing I've heard, thank you for doing that. So you'll be shocked at what you think of yourself and what actually is the truth. So like I said earlier, that positive mindset with it. At the end of the day, we're all human, and in live music, it's not always perfect. And that's what makes live music so special, because when it does go right, it's amazing. Always remember, a perfect performance isn't created by getting rid of all those symptoms, nervous symptoms. You do need some of those symptoms to create an exciting performance and get you going to produce that performance, to put that music across to the audience. And remember that the audience that are there to be entertained, and they want to connect with you. They want you to do well. They're not sitting there hoping that you're going to mess up. They want you to do well. The stress in life as well, all stress that we're getting, it can't be eliminated. And actually, most of the time, the stress isn't the problem. The problem, the issue arises is when we determine it as positive or negative stress. So as I said, if we view it in a positive light, then it's positive stress. If it's negative stress, it's negative. It's up to you how you view that. And finally, the last thing I'd like to say before I invite Ben in is you just have to remember why you became a musician in the first place. And for a lot of us, that's because we love music. We love to give the musical message across to the audience. So always remember that with your goals, that no matter how anxious you feel, always remember your goals, why you're doing it, why you stood there. It's because you love playing music. And I hope some of that was useful to some of you. And I'm now going to invite Ben in to answer some of the questions, hopefully. There he is.
Hi.
Hello.
Cool. Hi. So yeah, I'm here for the next half hour, just to answer any questions that you've got, the recruiting and joining process. But I'll also questions that you've put to Craig the last sort of half hour or so. But please do ask more questions in the comment section below. We'll try and pick up as many as we can. So whether that be on our own careers, by all means ask us things about that, or on Craig's subject, performance anxiety and nerves. I've dealt with I think everyone has at some point in their life, especially as a bugler, we get put in some quite different situations. So yeah, right, let's move on to a couple of questions. The first one that we got earlier on this story was, how do you stop your legs shaking? It's a good question.
Yeah, that's something I've had before, and it's not a very nice feeling when you're stood on stage and your legs are going. I would say think about those relaxation techniques I've spoken about. Try and be really relaxed. Take control of your body, deep breaths in and really slow down that breathing. And you can also, I've heard a lot of people say, you can think of having a pole through the top of your head and grounding your feet. So really ground your feet into the back, into the floor, and hopefully that will stop it. But by the time you thought of that, hopefully it would have stopped anyway, because you'd think about something else. But that, I'd say relaxation is the main thing. Just try and stay relaxed, and hopefully that would go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've suffered with it before, and I've just seen Steph just put disc. Absolutely. It's not very nice, but yeah, I'm over it. I'm not sure if I am over it, actually. Cool. Methods to cope with pressure and prepare. You've sort of gone over that. One question that we did have actually earlier, completely different, but policy on tattoos with joining the band service. Tattoos are, there's actually quite little restrictions now with tattoos, but the policy is on the Royal Navy website. So do go on there. There's also loads of information on the Royal Navy website about roles within the Royal Marines Band Service. People have asked questions before about instrument pairings and things like that. They're all on there. So do go over to the Royal Navy website and you'll find all that information there. Right. Do you get, and you did mention this with Alexander technique earlier, do you get trained to deal with performance anxiety at all whilst in training?
Yeah, so it's something that's always spoken about. And when I'm talking about the anxiety hierarchies, from joining, you are progressively challenged more and more and more with your exams. So it's considered all the time, and your instructors at School of Music are amazing. They're always there for you to talk about it, and it's something that's spoken about quite a lot in the band service. I know there's a few people that are sort of expertise in it, and they've gone off and done lots of research. So yeah, we do get a bit of training in the Alexander technique. That was in there. That was really good. All posture stuff and relaxation. So there is help there for us, and if you struggle with it, there's always people to talk to that have either gone, like Ben said, we've all been through it, we all know of ways to deal with it ourselves, and we can always have a chat about it, and it's a good place to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember in training, I know now for buglers, they've brought in a sort of mock funeral to try and give you the experience of doing a funeral without actually doing the funeral. So you can start to, so I know you mentioned picturing what it will be like in your head and stuff. But loads of experience around the band service, whether it be like professional experience, like people that have actually done courses in it, but also people that have just got their own experience. So like you mentioned coffee, I'm definitely one of those that doesn't touch coffee beforehand. Alcohol, don't touch alcohol before any, as in like 24 hours before a gig or anything like that. And I definitely, I believe in that a banana is a natural beta blocker, I think. So I use that. But there's loads of different experiences equally. I think, I know one of the guys we got here, Bugler, he brushes his teeth before he does anything because he says that's the best he plays when it's first thing in the morning. So that's one thing you do. Loads of hints and tips, and some people are quite individual, but interesting. Did it feel, because obviously you've soloed on MFM twice, does it feel that much to you playing MFM to playing in a small concert somewhere in the country?
Yeah, I think the Albert Hall is one of the best venues in the world, isn't it? It's iconic, and like I said, when you walk out into that stage, there's a certain feel to it. It's a weird, I can't even describe the feeling and the sound. It's like it's like quiet, but it's not quiet. There's a rustle, It's hot. You can't see the audience, but you know there's thousands of people there. And yeah, I think the last MFM last year, I really was very nervous. Very nervous. The first one I did wasn't too bad, actually. I think I was a bit younger and I sort of didn't think about it. But the last one I was nervous, and I used all the principles that I've talked about today, and we got there, and I really, when you're on stage, you enjoy it. But yeah, it's different to a smaller concert. And that's why I'm talking about the performance, the anxiety hierarchy. Maybe my hierarchy is that a normal concert isn't as nerve-wracking, whereas, so do you know what I mean? I'm working my way across. Maybe that's just for me. But yeah, there is a difference, definitely.
Yeah, cool. I think you sort of mentioned it there, but there's another question. Who makes you most under pressure when you play? And for me, it's playing in front of friends and family and colleagues. I absolutely think that's the worst.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Know what they're listening to. Yeah. How I play a bugle. How do you kickstart yourself after standing in the cold at the graveside, as you can't do running on the spot, to get your adrenaline going? I must admit, for me as a bugler, that's one of my worst situations for me. I don't like that at all. But I try and keep my lips as I can and keep my mouth watered as best as I can. Although it can be difficult because sometimes you can be front and centre and people can be looking at you. But to be honest, I've found that my adrenaline's been going already, especially when it comes towards actually playing. But I would say if you can, I mean, if you're a bugler or whatever, maybe sort of leave it until not the last minute, but as late as you can to then go to the point at which you're going to play, so that you can maybe hide around the back somewhere and keep moving, because it's not very nice to do it in the cold. Is the percussionist role in the band service the same as a bugler side drummer?
Do you want me to answer this one?
Yeah, go on.
Yes, no, it's not. We're completely different. We on parade will be a bass drummer, a cymbal player, maybe, or tenor drummer, so swinging the sticks in the air. So it's completely different. They train differently to us. Ben will probably add on to that in a minute. But we, I'm going to do the 3 years training, and we get trained in everything from drum kit to xylophone, marimba. So it's completely different. I don't know if you want to add on to that, Ben.
No, and obviously you do parade percussion as well. So you do tenor drum, bass drum, and cymbals, won't you? Won't do that. Any tips for dry mouth before playing? It's probably best one that I answer that, seems a bugler, what sort of, well, not bugler one, but it's a brass player one. I've sipped water quite a lot before, things like that, and bitten my tongue a little, as you said, lightly, but it can get saliva glands going, things like that. Again, not having things like that quite a while before you play, and alcohol like that, because that can dry your mouth up. Were you nervous at your band service audition? Yeah. Craig? Yeah,
definitely. I think, like I said, you're going to be nervous. And over the years, that's something that that's probably what I've learned, is that you are going to be nervous. It's how you deal with it. If I went onto a gig or a performance and I wasn't nervous, I'd be slightly worried, knowing what I know now. But it's not wrong to not be worried. But I just think you just have to accept that potentially you will be nervous. So yeah, at the band service audition, I was very nervous, especially when you're that young, I think. It's quite nerve-wracking.
Earlier, believe it or not, we're actually in opposite rooms right now. But earlier that Craig and I were together. Craig was 16 and I was 17, and yeah, it's mad when you look back. Cool. Right, how do you become a side drummer? To become a side drummer or a bugler, you will have to apply, go through your careers office. You can apply on the Royal Navy website. Once you've applied on there, you'll then be put through all the process, and then hopefully eventually come to audition here at currently virtually. And when you then do that, hopefully you'll then be successful, and then you join up and go through basic training and music training here at the Royal Navy School of Music. So I don't know if specific information to that, but I'm assuming you already play either side drum or bugle. You do one of those fairly well to be able to be considered for audition. But yeah, if you've got specific points on that, do ask away in the comments section. What tenor drum audition? As far as I'm aware, you don't do a tenor drum audition. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, so that's all learned at the School of Music. There's nothing for that.
Cool. What do you play in front of the band service audition? So that is going to differ for any category, if you like. I mean, I can't remember what I played now, but it's something that shows off your best ability, but obviously not too hard that you know that you might trip over it. But yeah, something that's going to show off your best ability, I would say. How about you, Craig?
Yeah, something that shows off your ability. Again, something that's not too hard. You want to show yourself off in the best light. Like we always say, we're not looking for the finished article. We're looking for potential. So yeah, just pick a reasonable program, something that maybe is varied, 2 or 3 things that are varied. They might ask for 1 or 2 different things.
Yeah, cool. I've registered some time ago. Will someone eventually get in contact? Yes, I'm sure they will. There's no harm in maybe dropping them an email again, though. But obviously, under the circumstances at the moment with COVID, people might be working slightly different hours, etc. And I think there is quite a big amount of people that want to join the services. So yeah. Now, if you want to register your interest with the band service for things like Look at Life course and things like that, do email us, careers@rawmarinesbands.co.uk. The information is in our bio on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, loads of information on there. Do you have to be a Royal Marine to play in the band? I'm assuming, do you have to be a Royal Marine Commando to play in the band? No, you don't. We do a 15-week basic military training course at Lympstone once a year, September to December, and then you join the School of Music. So that's when essentially you specialise music. But yeah, you don't have to be a commando to join the band service. Right. Sorry, who do you play in the audition? Craig, you showed a picture.
Yeah, I've got a picture here, so I'll go off this. It might vary, obviously, but we've got the assistant director of music training there, the director of music training, and the warrant officer bandmaster training. And thinking back, it was probably the bandmaster training when I was there, and the director of music training, and it was probably another warrant officer. So it's going to be about 3 or 4 people generally. They're all really approachable, and at the end of the day, they want to give you a job. That's where you've got to look at it. They're not there to not give you a job. They want to see how well you can play, to see if we can give you a job. So it's really not that nerve-wracking if you think about it that way.
Yeah. Obviously, it'd be slightly different for a bugler. Buglers major training, and the bugler instructors there as well. But yeah, one thing that a lot of people do say, especially when they come out of auditions, is that they weren't quite as scary as they thought they were going to be. But a good sort of starter, if you're looking like that, is to look at the Royal Marines Band Service YouTube page. It's new. Do go over there and have a look at that. Follow it. But there is a video on there. I can't think of exactly what it's called now, but it's about the Royal Marines School of Music. It's half-hour long documentary put together a bit earlier on this year, and they actually follow, I think, 3 or 4 hopeful auditionees, and they show you the whole audition process and what it's like, and then what it's like then when they go on and hopefully pass their audition and join the band service. What was your favourite part of basics? We both did our basics, so I'll ask Craig first.
That's a difficult one. I think it's one of those things that you look back on and you did have some really good times. So probably the friends you get from it, even though that sounds really cheesy, but it is true that, you know, the people we joined up with, myself and Ben, still really good friends, and there's other people that you sort of have a bond with that you would never get anywhere else. So that was probably my favourite part, I'd have said. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I think this was mentioned actually a couple of weeks ago, but I think the sense of me, I think basics for pretty much everyone that joins the band service, it's out of your comfort zone. So when you get to the end of that, hopefully, there's a massive sense of achievement. Obviously, there are, you know, smaller sense of achievement throughout basics. Actually finishing that is a massive sense of achievement, knowing that you've got through something that is completely out of your comfort bearing in mind you don't pick up a musical instrument at all during that period, so it's quite different. Right, there's a question earlier or lots of people want to know the answer to, but is when can we be seen live again? Are there any plans for the future? To be honest, I think we're pretty much going off of the national guidelines and things like that. So as and when concerts like that can start happening, I'm sure we will start concerts and that. But we are recording our annual MFA concert soon, and then when that's recorded and all sorted out and everything, it will be put out on our YouTube page and social media channels and things like that later on in the year for everyone to watch, free of charge, all that good stuff. So so that you know about that, do make sure that you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Twitter as well. I dropped my drumsticks during a drum solo. Have you ever embarrassed yourself during parade? I dropped my drum parade once. That was quite embarrassing. I don't otherwise. No, I don't think so otherwise. No. Craig?
I've had one when I was in the School of Music in the snow. I went to click the bass drum down the sticks and they snapped. Thankfully it wasn't on a gig. That's probably the most, apart from that. Thankfully nothing's happened.
Cool. Have a look. Right. So I was just thinking about some of the points that you said earlier about ways that you deal with it, and you said that you don't like talking to people at all, and I'm the complete opposite to that. I find people to actually talk to. Yeah. My mind off of it. Yeah, I think fan service, we all come under some quite interesting pressures, and yeah, it's interesting to know how people deal with it. There's, as I said earlier, there's loads of different ways. Right, let's have a look at a couple of other questions we've got. If you have got any, as broad as you like, recruitment, whether it be performance anxiety, anything like that, or what it's like in training, what it's like in a band, what it's like doing the job, anything like that, do fire away. Right. Sorry, I did have one written somewhere. So it's how much I've got written down. Right, apologies. Sorry. If there was something you would need to say was the main thing to remember for audition, what would it be? I would say just prepare yourself as best as you can in every respect, whether it be fitness, musically, everything, even like interview technique. Yeah, loads of things. What would you say, Craig?
Yeah, that's something I didn't mention earlier, but a lot of the techniques I spoke about can actually be applied not only to the audition, but to your interview. And like Ben said, just be prepared, just be relaxed, prepared, practice.
Yeah, that's quite a big thing for me anyway, for my own personal preparation when I'm looking at, soloing or anything like that, is that for I call it a tick box thing, but I in my head I know things that I need to do or not do. So i.e. I've not had a coffee and I've had my banana or whatever that may be, or I've drunk a lot of water and I've had breakfast and all that sort of stuff. Thing, and make sure that you practiced enough so that when you go into that audition you've done everything you can. But again, it's not just music, it's also you and technique, and also know a bit about service, a bit about what we do, and again, there's plenty of information on the internet, whether it be on the Royal Navy website or on social media or anything like that. Plenty of information. What about for the virtual auditions? You're on the Zoom one. Cool. To be honest, exactly the same thing. Prepare. We can. There is information out there on. I'm sure you've got that. If not, you will be getting that soon. What is going on in audition and things like that. So you should have plenty of information that will give you the tools, if you like, to be able to prepare.
Sorry, to add on to that, Ben. I think know about the job. They want to know. They want to give you that job, but it could be a lot of competition. So know how many bands there are, what they do, what we do on deployments, etc. What the bands have been doing. Maybe if you've got the blue band, or look at the Instagram or the Facebook, see what we've been doing. So when they ask you, why do you want to join this job, you can give them a good answer. And that'll put you in the best, that'll put your best foot forward for it, I think. That's
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Especially more recently, just when you said things like that, more recently we've had a couple of bands helping. You've probably seen, if you read the Blue Band or see on the social media, about Collingwood band being one, Scotland as well, deployed helping the NHS out around about in the hospitals in Bournemouth, Bath and Exeter. Missing you guys at the Albert Hall this year. Yeah, are actually recording MFM this year, so it's still going ahead, and it will be put out on our social media channels on YouTube later on in the year when it's all sorted, and it will be free and all that good stuff. Cool. Do you play sports in the Marines? If so, where have you travelled with them? I haven't really, to be honest, but I know Craig has.
Yeah, so I was really lucky. Again, been quite lucky throughout my career. But in the School of Music, I went with the Royal Navy under-19 football squad to America. Went to the Dallas Cup in America, where a lot of the big teams, the Manchester United under-19s, were there. Admittedly, we were a couple of divisions down, but we were still in the same competition. And we went out there, paid minimal to go. A lot of it was funded, and it was 2 weeks out there playing football, being paid to do it, representing the Navy, and it was amazing. Really good.
That's quite a good thing, actually, if people aren't aware, but these sporting opportunities, sports and AT, are within the band, well, within the forces, but the band service, you get exactly the same opportunities. We've got our own band service team, so like Craig said, oh no, that was with the Navy, wasn't it? But got the band service, football, rugby teams, things like that. But in the Navy, there's the people that do all sorts of sports, not just maybe football and rugby and things like that, but there's skiing, there's an annual about, there's skeleton. Someone that's just passed out actually does skeleton for the Royal Navy, which is amazing, and I didn't even know you could do that. Will the July Deal Bandstand concert go ahead? I very much hope so. Yeah, we hope so too. I'm not sure actually, but keep an eye out. I'm sure it will be advertised if it is. Hopefully it will be though. Cool. There now. If you have got any final questions, do post them below in the comment section. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Have you got anything else, Craig?
I don't think so. I just hope some of that was useful. Just remember to be positive, I think. If that's your pre-performance preparation, whatever, to be positive going into it, believe in yourself, have the confidence, and just remember that it's not bad to have those feelings. It's a good thing. It's natural, everyone gets it. Like you said, Ben, everyone deals with it in different ways.
Yeah. So just a question there. Is there a RM Bugle group in Southampton, Farnham or Gosport that one could contact for assistance to develop your bugling skills with? I can't think off the top of my head, but do drop us an email. And I'll give that out in a second, but do drop us an email and we may be able to point you in the right direction or help you out. So yeah, just before we go, just a couple of, we have got 2 auditions left this year at the start of June and July. If you are interested in those, you're going to need to get your application in fairly soon. That's on the Royal Navy website. We also have Look at Life courses. You might have seen they are virtual for the time being. We did one last year and a couple of months ago. And they are on the 31st of May to the 1st of June and the 25th to the 28th of October. Nearer the time, they will be advertised and there will be apply now, things and all that sort of good stuff. But if you are interested or if you have any questions or anything like that and you want to register your interest, do email us careers@royalmarinesbands.co.uk. And I'm sure someone will get back to you. As I said, do follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all of the information that we've talked about recruitment-wise is on those pages. But if in doubt, look at the Royal Navy website, and I'm sure you'll find the information that you need. Cool. I think that's it. Cheers for that, Craig.
Yeah, so I'll end this, and hopefully it'll go on to Instagram and TV, so it'll be there for you all to look at. Brilliant. Thank you. Bye-bye.